This is Boston Card Hunter. I'm back with another interview. This is Mike from Replay Sports Cards. This is one of the coolest new hobby businesses that I have come across. It's actually a franchise LCS model or franchise hobby shop, and they already have a couple. I wanted to bring Mike on because I don't think anybody knows about this. I also wanted to bring him on just in case any of you are interested in starting a franchise. So, Mike, welcome, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoy watching your stuff, so I'm pumped to be on.
Yeah, I'm a little more polite and positive on YouTube versus Instagram.
Yeah,
I'm having fun. Um, yeah, let's get right into it, man. So I want to talk about the origin and the franchise model a little bit. So for people who aren't familiar, what is Replay Sports Cards and how does the franchise model actually work for a new store
sure.
owner?
Yeah, so Replay Sports Cards, we've been around. We started as One Stop Sports, did a rebrand as we launched the franchise model, but Replay Sports Cards has been around. I've been the founder and owner along with Brent Skeppel for 5 years, and we've got Mike Weinberger on board as well, and he owns the franchise side of our business. I run our digital side, so we're streaming 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. We've got 3 shops across 3 different states: Boca Raton, Florida; Charlotte, North Carolina; and Denver, Colorado. And our franchise model, that's the really the core of our business,
Mhm.
is bringing the retail experience all across the country via the vehicle of collectors. And so I wanted to open up a bunch of shops. We started with, we've got 3 and 4 years. We're probably going to open another Denver shop very soon. And so for us, it was like, it would be really cool to allow what we're able to do and take our strategy and our systems and allow locally owned and operated businesses done by the collector. So it's a cool model where collectors that don't have a system, don't have connections in the hobby, but love the hobby and are collectors. We're allowing them the opportunity to start a business, start a replay sports cards in their town.
Excellent. Yeah, just a primer for the audience in case you're not well versed in the franchise business. The way it works is, let's say you want to do a Taco Bell franchise, right? So you reach out to Taco Bell to make sure the area is not saturated with 100 Taco Bells, and you open one up, and there's a certain amount of capital they expect, there's a certain amount of liquidity they expect, and a little bit of experience they expect, unless you hire a manager. And then for being able to use the brand Taco Bell on there, they charge you a fee, which can vary by franchise and experience. So it's a little bit different than opening up your own taco, Nick's taco shop, right? Pros and cons for each, and it's pretty cool to dive into this. So, what is the ideal franchisee? Is this like a 19-year-old kid that's got a Zion case, or is it like I don't know, a 25-year-old post MBA? Like, who's the ideal person? Hobby veteran, brand new entrepreneur? What do you think?
I love no, great question. And honestly, it varies, and I'll give you an example of that. But I would say at the core, it's finding people that truly want to buy into our mission statement. Our mission statement is building community through cards. And so, again, I could have, we could have opened up a shop every year or multiple shops every year. But we stopped that down and started the franchise model because we wanted to find people that are that do believe in us and want to start a business within us. And so I would say for example, we've got 3 franchisees signed on and ready to rock by spring. We've got a woman owned franchisee, so that'll be super super exciting. That'll be in
Wow.
Kansas. We've got Nashville, Tennessee, great young entrepreneur that I say young, but he's not that young. He's not a 19-year-old
Young at
walker out of
heart.
his time. Yeah, exactly. Young at heart, and really eager and a big long time collector. So super excited to get going there. And then we've got the guys in Seymour, Indiana, and they're just a couple guys that they fell in love with cards again, via their kids collecting and them getting into it and kind of that whole cycle. And they're great business minded folks, and they're ready to rock and roll there. So you
Cool.
could see already with just our first 3, just a variety. So if it could be a dad and a son that want to start, or a dad that wants to support his son starting. For us, the most important thing is building community through cards. And if they can own that and give a good experience to their community that they're going to open a replay shop,
Yeah.
then we'll talk. And we've turned down a lot more than we've accepted or continued conversations. It just, and like you said at the top, it comes down to a bunch of different elements, and we want to make sure it's the best fit for them and also for us too.
Very cool. I like it. Um, Yeah, it's interesting to know that you're rejecting people. Also fascinating to me. I look at businesses. I'm an investor, angel investor. You just casually said that you are about to double, and so you
Yep.
know, you could also double in another time frame, and that is a nice parabolic curve, which could be. I mean, maybe you see these everywhere. I know myself there's a different franchise model nearby. I know Chris Costa very well. Tom Brady, Card Vault by Tom Brady is I don't it's not necessarily a franchise, but it's more of like a national card shop, but very different and very high end. Um, the there's some questions around like store standards and brand control because these aren't tacos. It's not
No.
like shell, meat, lettuce, like
Yeah.
whatever 5 minutes to make. This is like cards are eclectic, man. It's like vintage stuff, autograph stuff. You might want some memorabilia, you might want some modern stuff. How like what are the non-negotiable standards of every replay store that you have to meet, like for layout and product mix and stuff like that?
Sure. Yeah, no, great question. I would say simply, almost everything, I would say from within our model is like non-negotiable at the front. Everything, we're very collaborative and we're really, partnership based. So the layout, for example, we'll set up the shop exactly how we want our replay shop to look like. The same furniture in the shops, the same casework, this exterior sign, the vinyl work, our step and repeat for really good, photo opportunities in shop. That type of stuff, again, would probably fall into the non-negotiable category. But if
Hmm.
they have suggestions, hey, what about this piece of furniture that we'll work with them. And then on the product side, which is probably what you're most intrigued about, for us, we do our product. We take in the new releases, we sell through them very quickly within our shops. We don't get
Hmm.
a ton off rip, and so when we get through that, we're rebuying. And it's going to be dependent upon shops. I don't think every replay shop will look identical. We're all about communication, and we want to hear back from the franchisee on like, hey, I've got a bunch of baseball. I can't move it. Can you help me? And being able to help them move, half their baseball showcase because they're more of a football, flip that to the connections we've made and then get them more football. And so we're going to be very adaptive. There's really not like, you must have X% of baseball, X% of football, X% of basketball or certain skews. We do trend on the more modern side, I will say, both on the singles and the wax side.
Yep.
But it's very collaborative, more so than like to your point, like Taco Bell, you can't change up the seasoned beef. Like it's a recipe and you got to roll. For us, like it's going to be interchangeable. We've done that with our three shops right now. So,
Fascinating.
non-negotiables, but collaboratively, I
Got
would
it. So
say.
you're not sitting there with like a big stick saying like, all right, 40% vintage and 40%,
No,
modern and 20% memorabilia or anything like that. You're actually letting them have some autonomy. And then if it's a football town, like, if you're next to the, whatever stadium and that's where you skew, then
no,
that's interesting about, we're going to get into that in a minute about product sourcing and allocation and stuff. But like the fact that you can treat it as almost one organism. You've got like three shops and you can kind of share product amongst each other to optimize is actually a pretty interesting strength. If I was doing a SWOT analysis on this, like that's pretty cool. Makes you more adaptable. All right. So how many stores do you have right now? I think you said 3 or 4, right?
we've got three open. Charlotte, North Carolina, Boca Raton, Florida, and Denver, Colorado. We just opened last month.
And then it sounded like you have 3 or 4 in the queue, like people
Yep, we've
that,
got another Denver shop popping up fairly soon on the other side
yep.
of Denver, and then we've got three franchisees signed on.
Excellent. So, how
That's
many of the current stores have a direct account with Tops?
Yep. So all of our open shops, so Boca
Okay.
Raton, Charlotte, and Denver are all direct with Tops.
What I know this is always interesting because getting a direct account is very difficult and you have to meet certain standards and everything. What percentage would you say of the product you have in those 3 stores comes from distributors or the secondary versus directly from Tops?
Yeah, it's pretty mixed. It's difficult too because I think it would vary based on if it was, the overall revenue based on, versus the amount of boxes. Because we end up, I mean, we rebuy a lot. I don't think there's a shop in America right now, like especially with product where you're not reordering, right? And you're like, oh man, I want to, I don't have, we almost always don't have enough, and so we're rebuying a lot, so that probably plays into it. All the shops are direct. We take everything that, Tops, Upper Deck, Panini. We take what's offered, and then from there, we're buying, on your Discords, your dealer nets, your different connections throughout the industry. We've been
Yep.
going to shows, Brett and myself, for the last 7 years, and so just building those connections and having people that have extra wax. But I would say it's pretty split. Maybe I don't want to say 50-50 because I don't know the actual numbers, but maybe even more on the rebuy side
Yeah,
elsewhere
got
outside
it.
of doing that.
Well, you're like, so it sounds like you have the direct account, but you're still supplementing that by going to shows. Discords
Yep.
is interesting. I never trust Discords, but that's cool. Discord's cool. Facebook groups is what I use, which is fine
Yeah,
sometimes for like 86 Fleer and stuff. And obviously you have the secondary like David Adams, Steel City, and all that.
exactly.
But then the prices are obviously higher. Um, so now I know on the recent town hall that Tops had, they announced a pause in direct accounts until after the national card show this year in July. Ones that are still in the queue are going to get considered. Um, how are future replay stores going to get product with this pause?
Yeah, I mean, we started our first 2 years, we weren't direct with anyone. Going back, obviously that's the boom and a little bit different of a market. But our first 2 years we weren't direct, and we were able to really be successful. And again, with that, we just built so many connections along the way. We were just in Dallas last week and picked up a ton of wax for the new Indiana shop.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of avenues. We're fortunate where we'll be bulk buying, especially, again, the extra stuff we want for the three current shops, the three franchisees upcoming, and then, hopefully the 15 total we have, in the next whatever. Again, like you said, just double, 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 double. But for us, there's a lot of avenues. It's really,
Hmm.
not being direct for us isn't, being direct is a blessing. It's great. It's fantastic. It allows us to be as competitive as possible, but there's a lot of different avenues out there, and there's other great vendors too, Upper Deck and Panini too, that we're working with, and they you
Right.
know they have
Yeah, I have
accepted.
to remind me that hockey exists.
Of course.
So you
Yeah.
have
Oh yeah.
Upper Deck, and then there's always tricky things, like Panini will have certain autograph cards, but they may be
Yeah.
not licensed, and then Topps has the licensed cards or not. The autographs gets a little tricky depending on the player.
Oh yeah.
So that makes sense. And so it sounds like you take allocation from one store, and if the circumstances warrant it, you may move that allocation to another store in the franchise if they need it, right? Or do I have that
No. So
incorrect?
nothing. So yeah. So nothing. For the most part, we're moving like singles, like actual like slabs and singles.
Got it.
The wax, we never run into a situation like a shot, product gets allocated to Charlotte, that's going to Charlotte, and that's staying within those four walls. Because but we honestly sell out of most releases. That anything that comes from direct is a new release, right? They're
Yep.
not, for those that may not, know that particularly. Like direct stuff is new release, comes out on release. There might be a rebuy, but there's, it's primarily the new release. And so for us, like, we're selling out of that most of the times if we're getting, whatever we're getting week of release. And so there's never ever an opportunity where we would even think of like, hey, we got to move this because it's not moving. The
Hmm.
stuff we're moving is like the older stuff. So like we have great partners that'll, hey, 28, Josh Allen's in the playoffs, not anymore. Sorry, Bills fans, but we bought a bunch of 2018 stuff. And so that stuff, right? If we try it in in Charlotte and it doesn't move, then we'll move it to Boca. But it's more the older
Yeah,
stuff,
I
more
gotcha.
super niche stuff that we'll do. But any of the new release stuff, it comes to Charlotte, stays within the four walls, so on and so forth.
Another
So
cool business dynamic for the audience. If you look at Michael Porter's strategy, like he's done a lot of good stuff. He founded a big consulting agency, Monitor Group, in Boston, and he talks about supplier power, and buyer power. And what's interesting here is if you're Taco Bell, you obviously purchase a ton of beef. And so you can go to the beef secondary market or commodities market, and you can command a certain price because you're going to buy so much. What's interesting now, and they may not be able to do it with 3 stores, but if they go to 15 stores or 25 stores or even 100 stores down the road, you can imagine that replay could go to a David Adams or could go to a card show. Even if you're going to buy more, you get a better deal. It's just basic economics. So that's very interesting. path that I'm thinking about for this. So all right, so let's say one of these new stores opens. The female-led store opens. I think you said that was Nashville, right? Um,
That's Kansas.
okay, got it. So she's opening up in Kansas. Um, what expectations should they realistically have around like allocation in year one? You think you can get them allocation? Seems like your other stores have it. Like what are you telling this person?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's something we're asked all the time on, when we're taking in leads. We do not guarantee any allocation upon any vendor at any time. Our franchisees are signing on knowing that they could never be direct, and if that's the case, they would still be successful and the model still works.
Okay.
So that's like the premise. For us, I hope within a year, again, maybe we grow to 15 or 30 shops, and again, our reputation, it takes time. And so we've been around for 5 years. If it takes 6 years, to continue, making sure that people know that we're putting on a good shop experience and all of that, great. But we can be successful, in these franchise locations with or without direct accounts. And I feel confident just based on how much extra we're buying that's not direct, right? And still having margin and still, giving fair prices for our customers. So I feel super confident, but there's no guarantee on anything, vendor wise, that they're going to get a direct account. Um, Hopeful, yes, of course. But yeah, there's no,
Okay. Yeah, it makes
they
sense. So
don't
it's not
know
like you're
anything.
saying, all right, you have a 20% better chance or something like that.
Exactly.
It's just pretty
No.
straightforward. And
Yep.
how do you, like given that this new store is in Kansas and you're in Florida, you're not like next door. How do you make sure the new store owner doesn't overpromise customers on certain product availability? Like Topps NBA Chrome or something like that. They're like, yeah, I can totally get you a jumbo, and then they don't, and the customer's pissed off. Like, what kind of feedback loop do you have?
Yeah, no, we have really good internal, external ecosystems. And so when a request like that comes in, there's a channel where that franchisee sends it through to our inventory team. And they'll make sure that we have that product on hand for them via our connections. And so it's a good question. We can't really monitor it. Honestly, the franchise model makes it really unique to that question of um, you know, I'm not in Charlotte. How do I know? Well, my business partner Brent's in Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
I'm not in. How do I know Mike Weinberg and my other business partners in Colorado? And that's how we kind of structured it with our corporate shops. The franchise is so great because that owner operator is in that community, right? It's not, we'll have, I'm sure, down the road multi-unit, operators, but for now, you know, Andrea in Kansas, she's in Kansas, and she's in Salina, and she's
Yep.
going to make sure that that person's being taken care of. So, to answer your initial question, it really comes with training. That's
Okay.
definitely something in our training guide. We go through 1 to 2 week training in our Charlotte headquarters shop with the franchisees. There is systems from how do you open a shop to how do you close it with checklists and great different programs we use plugged in with Shopify and and our payroll system. And so there's a lot of systems in place to kind of avoid those, sticky situations because you
Okay.
want every customer to be happy and and you won't always do that, but when you can, protect that, it's important.
All right, makes sense. Now, I'm going to shift to breaking versus traditional shop sales a little bit because I do know you break and you break on whatnot,
Yep.
and you don't break in shop. I think you told me you break off premise. It's funny if I opened up a card shop today. I've been around. I talk to people. I would have a whole different approach. Actually, everybody probably hate my approach, but I would just do like the Mr. Beast thing. I'd get a warehouse way off the beaten path. That's like a
I
dime a
love that.
dozen square foot. I would almost the whole thing would be basically breaking and it would be a PSA submission hub. That would be my card shop. And then if it was in Boston, I just have some Boston stuff there and a little bit of wax. But nobody wants to hear that. That's a terrible shop. But it's it would
That's,
definitely be successful.
that's
Not
awesome.
going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But so your breakout here, you know, roughly speaking, what percentage of revenue for a typical store, like maybe this new store that's opening, or maybe after they're running for like 3 to 6 months, how much of it is breaking versus in-store wax and singles and supplies? I mean, supplies is probably small, but like, what's
Yeah.
that pie chart look like a little bit?
So it's I'll throw a curveball in there. It's actually interesting. So the streaming side is franchisees. That's not in the model.
Okay.
It's unique, and the reason being, and I'm glad you asked this because we really want them to focus on retail. What happens sometimes is people get so excited and they'll see something shiny and they'll run to it, right? And it's like you have to do that first thing first, right? You have to be extremely successful in retail. You can't really do streaming and retail
Yeah.
to a 10 out of 10 together right off the jump. And so maybe down the road that's things we'll offer to certain franchisees, but for right now franchisees, again, similar to no direct accounts, they're signing on knowing there is no streaming that is owned by corporate per se. I hate that word, but
What happens if Andrea decides like, all right, Andrea's breaks on whatnot? Are you guys gonna get pissed off or
yeah, I mean, and it's technically it would be against like terms, right?
okay.
So and that's why we set it up. What we are probably going to work through, which is unique and I like it, is maybe like more in-store breaks where they're actually breaking for the customers on like a Saturday afternoon because we do a bunch of trade nights that could be like maybe our trade day, and so find like a way where they could still do breaks
Got it.
but not online. We just want, it gets, you see it, you report about it all the time. It's like I this is our brand and I can
Yeah.
protect it because I'm hiring our five guys that do it, so
You don't want them playing the repack carnival games
no,
and
no,
stuff
no,
like
no.
that. I got
No
it. I
thanks.
got it.
Yeah.
So going back to Nick's card shop, the warehouse, Mr. Beast
Oh yeah.
style, that's a grading hub, and
Sponsored
it's
by
all
Taco Bell.
yeah, yeah, with a taco truck outside. Um, I want to talk about events. The other reason I would get a warehouse is I would have space for events and
Yep.
tournaments, which I think is booming. I know Jeff Wilson told me that 50-50, his store is split now between TCG and sports
Yeah.
cards, which is
Yeah.
fascinating. And obviously Pokemon and some of the other crazier stuff that's selling for bananas prices. But Pokemon's a playable game and people have
Yep.
tournaments and stuff like that. And I think that's an interesting concept. And obviously, even if you don't, even if you're just a sports card shop, there's trade nights, there's card shows you can do at the shop. So, do you guys in your existing stores do you run trade nights, kid events, or like community nights? Are they required? Are they optional? What's like the cadence that you kind of do
Yep.
these?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, they are required. All of our shops will have them. They're monthly. We do a once a month trade night, typically from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. local. We bring in pizza, we bring in drinks, and we probably give away anywhere from like $500 worth of stuff to like $1,500. Bunch of retail boxes, hobby boxes,
Sweet.
slabs, singles, store credit. We've got some fun activities in the shop too. Or hey, next raffle is go grab 10 $5 cards out of our bin, stuff like that, and just provide value. We don't have it like a kid specific one because and it's how we operate in our shop. Like everything is all ages. I treat a 12-year-old in our shop, and we train our guys too the same way that I would treat, the town mayor that comes in and we know he's got the money, and I treat him the same way. And so that's how we operate our trade nights, and it's really cool. A lot of the people that shop with us, they see that too. So anyway, all ages trade night. And then we do some community events as well. We have a charity component called Replay Gives Back. We've collected over 2 million cards for kids. Customers will take in or donate their unwanted cards. We give those cards a second life by packaging them into 25 card packs, giving them out to local charities, even some
Oh,
nationwide
cool.
charities. And so yeah, last year at the national, I think we collected 1 million cards. And so we're at 2 million. Our goal for this year is 5 million. And yeah, it's cool. It's we've got some, like, check out our IG. We've got some cool videos. Like kids, it just makes their day. I mean, it's
I'm going to
really
give you an unsolicited idea. Okay. This is
love
one
it.
of my
Love it.
ideas to grow the sports card hobby with kids.
Yep.
Every school in America, I don't know if you have kids or not, but like they have a Scholastic Book Fair like every
Yes.
quarter, and you get that thing every month. I feel like there should be a sports card club in every middle and high school in America. And this is my challenge to you guys. Every place that you have a franchise in Boca,
Yep.
you need to sponsor a school and find a kiddo that wants to like start a sports card club and donate some stuff to them and help them get it off the ground. If
Love it.
anybody is in the location, what are the locations you mentioned again? We got Charlotte,
Charlotte,
Boca,
North Carolina. Yep.
and
And Denver.
Denver. And
Yep.
then you got another one coming up in Kansas. I forgot the other two, but
Seymour, Indiana, Kansas, and Nashville.
all right, anybody listening or watching that wants to help this or donate stuff, or is in that area, or if you're in that school or a parent of a kid in the school, hit him up. I just forced him to do this. You should do
Please,
that
I'm
because
in. I'm in.
I
I
think
love
that's a
it.
really dope community thing. I'm going to be doing that at my son's school, and they're into the idea, and they could run their own school sponsored card show
Oh
that
yeah.
either funds the school or maybe it funds a trip to the National or Fanatics Fest or something like that. That's like that is like really cool. You talk about the franchise model going to 100. We could have like 1,000 new card shows across the country run by kids, and it kind of grows
Yeah.
the next generation. So I don't know. I digress. That's my that's
No,
my
I
crazy
love it.
idea.
And you see a lot. No, I love that. And you see a lot of these card shows, like World Champion. They put on a great show in Palm Beach. They actually set up areas for like young entrepreneurs and give tables to kids to set up. So it's actually we're seeing that a lot more at these shows.
Yeah.
Everything is the next generation of collectors.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
we
yeah.
treat it poorly, it's
Yeah,
done.
it's like cigarette smoking. They're just going to die,
Yep,
and the
100%.
curve goes down unless you have to see the new generation, which I think
Yep.
we are to some extent. But like, I want to see more of it around collecting. Like, I want these clubs to learn about parallels, rainbows, autograph sets, stuff like that.
No
Um,
doubt.
all right, two more questions. The first one is just piggybacking that. So, how does TCG, like Pokemon, Magic, how does that integrate? Are your stores just no TCG, or do they have a component of that?
Yep. So definitely every shop will have a component of that. We start with a small selection in each of our shops. So like Indiana will open next month.
Yep.
They will have probably half a showcase and maybe a couple shelves. We'll have some booster bundles. We'll have some packs. We want to test the waters.
Yep.
Charlotte has they're pretty strong TCG. Boca, not as much. Denver is like super TCG. So like I could see Denver, it will never be
What is
for
the
any.
reason?
I
What
don't
is the
know.
reason? Is it just geography, you think? Or
It is so odd. I don't know, but it is
huh.
so prevalent. We noticed it at the Denver Card Show, a lot of TCG. And then, I was there. I flew to Denver and built out that shop and was there for about a month. And the amount of people asking, for TCG was crazy. So
Okay.
our shop's typically like 5% TCG, but
Oh
and
wow. All right.
it would never go to like 50%. At the end of the day, right, we play sports cards, but like Denver, I will get as much. I will fill up like a shelf. Like we have an area in Denver for Pokemon, and we found some great vendors there. So it really just depends on the market, but we really and that's with anything. Like I was talking about baseball, football. Like we lean into it. What that community needs and wants, like we're gonna go get it. And we have good systems to like put those requests through, make sure they get fulfilled, and get product in the hands of customers that want it.
All right. Cool. Where do you see replay 1 year from now? Stores, regions, and scale. Like where do you see the company?
Stores, I would say 30 shops. So we'll be at I hate it, 6, 7. I hate that.
You did it.
But we actually will. Like I wouldn't have we actually will be at 6 or 7 shops by May, I would say,
Okay.
roundabout, right? So let's say we're at 7. There's no way we don't double that by the end of the year.
Okay.
And so minimum, I would be very happy with 15, but I could see 30. And
All
our
right.
goal 3 to 5 years is 105 shop or 101 shops. And so we got to keep pace, right?
Two
So we
per
can't,
two per well, not two per state, but like,
yeah,
like
give or
yeah,
take. I mean,
per
I feel
capita.
like there's so much white space. I feel like you realistically, could open up 500 shops right now and it wouldn't compete with other shops in the
I
country.
didn't I didn't prepare you. A lot of these questions, like, I we talked through before, but this one I haven't. What are some underserved parts of the country for sports card shops? What are the top two or three?
So where we're opening up in Salina, Kansas, that's our third franchisee. That is where I need people to come to us and say, guys, I need a shop in this area. there's maybe 3 shops within like a 3 hour radius around it. Like
Wow.
it's crazy. And so I haven't. That's a Mike Weinberger question. He runs our franchise, so he's got that one. As
But
far
Kansas
as
is one.
Kansas is definitely one. It really like I, we'll open excited like Brady's doing something really cool, and it's phenomenal for the hobby. And his partner is an awesome dude, great in the hobby. And they're gonna hit a lot of the major cities, and we'll hit a couple. Right, we're hitting Nashville. I'm from New York. Naturally, I'm sure we'll find our way in New York. You got to get up to your way somewhere in Boston around, Brady. There's opportunity.
Maybe we'll
Um,
do Nick's Mr. Beast card shop idea, but it'll be
I
Nick
love it.
slash replay sports.
I love it. And yeah, and I mean, Mr. Beast, he can give away $1 million worth of cards and without blinking an eye. So,
Sure.
but yeah,
Cool.
there's a lot of space. So we're excited. I mean, sky's the limit. We just want to keep doing what we're doing and finding
All right.
great collectors. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. So the reason I had Mike on we spoke about replay sports cards, I think it's important for all of us to understand the business side of the hobby and sports cards. And the shops that we grew up with in the 80s, they have evolved. Even Rob at Burbank, I just interviewed him last week. He's evolved and he's been here for 40 years. He has a PSA sub center in his shop. He's all digital, like really, really cool tech and stuff like that. I think it's cool to see what changes are coming to our world. And this is one of them. I have a good spidey sense and I kind of sniff things out before they happen. And this feels like something that's about to get big. And also, the reason I wanted to have him on is anybody watching or listening, if you think that you have what it takes to start a franchise in Kansas or maybe another area, I'm sure they have a whole intake thing. Maybe they'll take you on. So, Mike, with that, what is a great way to reach out to you if they are
Yep.
interested in franchising, or maybe they just got questions, or honestly, maybe they just want to wheel and deal some wax, or something
Yeah.
like that. What's a good way to reach
No,
out to you?
no doubt. So my email, you guys can hit me directly. My email is mike.m@replaysportscards.com. I can answer any question. I can direct you to the right department if I don't know it right. And then if you're interested in franchise, I would encourage you to go to replaysportscards.com. There's a franchise in the top right menu, and you can learn about it. If you're interested, you could fill out the form. That's the absolute best way to find us. And let us know, like if you heard about it on this podcast, like please put that in your application because I would love to. We'll have to track that, and so I'll do. We'll see how many people come from this podcast, and then I'll let you know how many schools we get
That would be sick. That's
on
sick.
our
And I'll
our,
send stuff.
our
I got a
people.
whole closet of stuff, man.
I love
I'll
it. I love
I'll
it.
uh,
Me
I'll
too.
donate for this.
Me
Awesome.
too. Thank
Dude, great having you. Thanks so much, man. Maybe we'll do this
you.
again in a year and
Yeah,
we'll splice in your prediction versus what it actually looks like.
I love it. We'll be at the national too, so if you want to come by, we could do a little mini pop up podcast too. That'd be
There
great.
you go. He'll be at the National. Excellent. Mike, thank you
All right.
very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.